Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. Okay, picture this. You have left your homeland, your roots, and everything that's familiar to you in a pursuit of a better life in a foreign land. The journey of an immigrant is a profound one, filled with unique challenges and profound transformations. Yet, amidst the external adjustments, there's an equally compelling internal journey, a voyage towards self acceptance in a new world. And today, we'll not only explore the hurdles they encounter, but also the courage it takes to fully embrace their identity and the inner conversations that guide them through this transformative path. The story of my guest today mirrors the lives of countless immigrants who have braved these trails. Her tale is one of a personal evolution, a narrative that unfolds through moments of cultural shock and identity exploration. Join us as we delve into the multifaceted world of immigrants, where every step is a testament to their courage, every day a page in their transformative story. Please welcome Luna.
Thank you so much, Chris. It is my pleasure to be a part of this, and I'm so happy to share my learnings with you. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Pleasure to have you, Luna, on the podcast. Thank you for doing this, and really excited for this conversation.
Me too.
So, Luna, I want to start by asking you if you have any favorite inspirational quote or saying that resonates with you.
I think one thing which I think is very, very, I say, as you sow is what you reap is one thing, and very cliche, change is the only thing constant.
Yeah.
I think because those are two of my very, very guiding compass, which nobody taught me this, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
has told me this, but I think my journey in life has made me believe that sometimes you just don't need to think of the results. Sometimes you just need to give.
Mm,
The universe
yeah.
has its way of giving it back to you. And I strongly, strongly believe that. So that's one, and change is the other thing. To be honest, Ulysses, when I was thinking about what are some of the learnings and failures that I wanted to share, I went back to my 15-year-old self. I went back to my 21-year-old self. I
Mm-hmm.
went back to my 25-year-old self. I went back to my 30-year-old self. And I realized that the only thing that, was constant at all these
Yeah,
portions is me, myself, and the change that came with it. So I
absolutely.
think these are the two things. I strongly, strongly go by these two.
I love them, and I think the change is the only constant is also something which is very close to me because the biggest change for an immigrant's life is to leave everything behind and coming to the new world, accepting this, and then even moving cities for various purposes for PR and points, etc. So I think because that thing stayed with me, the change is the only constant that kept me moving rather than kind
Yeah,
of dwelling into my current state that this is gone, this is there, yes, but it might change as well. So yeah, I
yeah.
really love that. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's a given. Not only for I think a human evolves only when he or she
Yeah.
knows that no days are the same. And if your 2 days are the same, you're not learning, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's something that I consciously look out for.
And is there any habit, Luna, that you have adopted and that has changed your life, or something that has become your second nature?
I think introspection. Every single day,
Hmm.
Graces, I take out maybe 5 or 10 minutes, especially when it's a tough day, to look
Okay.
back at, okay, and this is, I think, over COVID, when I had a little bit of time to learn about and go inward, I realized that it's very easy to bash yourself up. Oh, I didn't do that
Mm,
presentation well.
yeah.
I could do this better. I didn't do that interview well. Okay, somebody told me this. I could have answered this better. So I think one thing which I've realized is one is gratitude and introspection. So every day, sit. What really went well? What didn't go well? What did it? What is it that you learn?
Hmm.
Be kind to yourself. It just gives you that, okay, I did my best. Have you done your best? If not, why you didn't do it? And then go back and say, okay, this is a lesson I learned today. So I think that is very humbling, because
Hmm.
sometimes things go well for you back to back and you feel that, oh, everything
Yeah.
is going well, and suddenly you will have, especially I think from a South Asian culture, because we always have so much of high expectations of self from our childhood, it's very
Yeah.
easy to bash yourself. So I think the last, again, this is not, didn't come easy. I think last 2 3 years I consciously make it a thing. It could be end of the day, it could be in the evening when I go for walk, it could be just when I'm just listening to a nice music piece and I feel that I just need to breathe.
Hmm.
I think that has made a lot of difference to how I see myself.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm not perfect, but yeah, if I cannot love myself or I cannot accept myself, nobody would.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that, Luna. Thank you for saying that. I really hope our listeners do that in their life. But tell me, what are the questions that you ask yourself when you introspect? What are the, maybe, or let's just say, like, what are the three main things that you focus on when you talk to yourself?
I think when I talk to myself, one is we are humans, right? We start
Yeah.
to think that okay, this is what I need to achieve. Okay, we always have these. By 20 we need to do is 25, and sometimes you don't. It could be, and sometimes these
Mhm.
are factors which you can't control, right? So
Yeah.
I ask myself. The only question I specifically overall ask: have you done it wholeheartedly? Have you given
Hmm.
it your 100%? If something tells me I've done it my 100%, I just don't rethink about it because I know that genuinely I have done what I could. And then you have other, variables who are acting and doing that. So one, I always ask when I
Yeah.
did that, did I do it my 100%? And if I did not, I just say it's okay. What could I have done better? I think about it, maybe make a note or maybe just consciously talk about it to somebody
Mhm.
who I feel comfortable with and say that this is how I'm feeling. Is it okay? So yeah, and these are the two questions. Basically, I always ask myself, like, have you given it your all? It's okay. And if not, did you learn from it? Let's do it right the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time.
Yeah, I think it happens, right? That we all have those days where we are at our 100% of the energy, and sometimes we are like 80%, and that is our 100%. Sometimes we might be at 40, and that is our 100% of the day.
Wow. Yeah.
And sometimes we keep on questioning, I would have done better, I would have done better, but we should cut some slack to ourselves
Yeah.
also, rather than saying that you would have done better all the time.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, it's always about when we have our own milestones, and sometimes we miss it, and
Yeah.
it's okay
Yeah.
to miss it because it is the way. There's a reason why you've missed it. Maybe there's something else that's being given to you. So work on that.
Hmm.
So that's what I strongly believe in.
We'll definitely dive deeper into that, but let me take you back to the time we spent in India, specifically Calcutta. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, a little bit about your formative years, and also what the focus was on growing up.
It was a typical middle class family background. Now when I look at it, my parents are from Kerala, so we are South Indian. So they moved to Calcutta in the late 50s, 60s. So they were immigrants in a way from
Mhm.
a different state, trying to
Yeah.
build their lives and their homes. My father came from both my parents were from agricultural background, so they were the first to actually go out of their comfort zone. So sometimes when I look
Okay.
back, I think maybe it's a genetic thing. It's come.
Yeah.
It's difficult because they had everything working for them. Their parents were pretty well off in the village that they were. And now when I look back, I think my dad did a huge, and both my dad and mom did a huge to say that, okay, this is what I have, but let's see what's out there. And that was quite
Mm.
coming from that background to actually make that choice was huge. So, um, but it was just a normal, any kid, very, very protected. I was the younger one in the house, very
Mhm.
pampered. Never, when I say pampered, like we were taught to be independent, but parents took care of most of our needs. The only focus was you study.
Mhm.
This is the best gift. And I think that is very important that both my parents, especially my father, he inculcated that education is a gift not everyone has. So when you have it, make the most out of it. Every little opportunity that you get, learn from it and give it your best shot. And don't get us into trouble. That was,
Mhm.
you do whatever you want, don't get parents into trouble. So that was the normal, very, very normal kid off the block. I was in a convent educated school, very sheltered, I would say. But as a kid, I think now again, when I look back, because I was a South Indian, when I used to say I'm from Calcutta, they used to say, "Oh, you are not a Bengali, right?"
Mm.
So at that time too, people tend to box you, right? So when I look at my cultural misfit, I always feel that, oh, when I was a kid, when I used to go back for vacations back to Kerala,
Yeah.
I used to not gel in there because I was from Bengal. Like I was born and brought up there,
Hmm.
right? So I was
Yeah.
technically somebody outside of that village. So, there was a lot of change going on, and I was trying to figure out who I was, what is my identity. So that was something that I think used to think a lot as a child. But yeah, I was quite naughty at home,
Hmm.
but very very quiet in school, and teachers used to really like me because I used to be the kid who did not get into trouble. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a little bit of my background. But as I said, very sheltered, very pampered, typical middle class, where it was told to us that you need to be independent, and education is something that you cannot take for granted. So yeah.
Yeah. I actually want to mention to our non-Indian speaker, in non-Indian listeners, that she's like you said, like you moved from Kerala to in Calcutta, Bengal, and you're saying you're talking as if you have moved to like a different countries. So I feel like people might be assuming that, is this the same place? But this is the thing about India, right? It's
India,
so
yeah.
diverse and so different cultures are there in different parts of within India, that it comes as a shock to you that it is that different. So tell me, Luna, that how did you then cope up with that? Like something that stayed with you from these cultures, or something you feel like you would have maybe like even done better in any way.
So when I was a kid, it really didn't bother because again, when you are in that sheltered environment, my school was just 10 kilometers around my house. My friends were there. I never actually moved out. Right, the first,
Hmm.
I think, 15 years, everyone knew each other, so it was very sheltered. I used to find it that I was not fitting the box when I used to go back for vacations back to my village because
Hmm.
the thought process. I was from a city. My parents were from a village. I used to visit once in maybe 2 or 3 years for summer vacations. People used to think she looks like us, but she's not like us, right? She speaks English. She's a little different. The way she, mannerisms can be a little different based on from where you are. So it didn't really
Yeah.
strike me. But I think the first hit that I got was when I moved to high school.
Okay.
When I moved to school, basically, it was completely before I was only competing with girls. I had a specific set of, I've from when I was kindergarten to when I was 15, I was in the same school. So it was 10 years meeting
Yeah.
the same teachers and everything. And suddenly I moved into out of my comfort zone, um, competing with probably how you would do in the real world. You are not really
Yeah.
competing only with women, right? So it was, and the school which I joined, they basically used to coach students for IITs. So usual schools had cut off of 35 as a pass percentage. In my school, it was 50.
Hmm.
So very high performing individuals who already getting into IIT coaching. And I actually joined the school 3 months late. So I did it like, there was a first cutoff. I only got admission after the second cutoff because I wanted science and things like that. So I was in that flux where the environment is new.
Hmm.
I was already 3 months back. I joined in June, and the classes started in April. Then this gender difference, the language difference. I was in the same
Yeah.
city, but I felt like I was in an alien space, right? So it took me a lot of time. It took me a lot of time to understand that, hey, I was living in a bubble. I was living in a
Hmm.
place which was so sheltered by my parents, with those same friends, with those same neighbors, with the same relatives, that I don't know what's going on in this world. And this was my first experience to the real world. The competition was there. You have different type of people you are
Hmm.
interacting with. You are competing in sports, you're competing in education, how you would do in a real. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a shock for me. So that was my first take on a change. And then obviously I moved cities again, for professionally I moved back to Bangalore.
Hmm.
That was another shock for me because again, that's a very cosmopolitan melting pot. People are there.
Yeah.
Again, there's a question. Oh, you're South Indian, but you've come from the north. Because back in Bangalore, anything above the Deccan is north.
Again, the question: where are you from?
From, yeah. So that question has never ever left me, to be honest, Chris. Where are you from?
Yeah.
And I ask myself that every day. Where are you from? And where do you want to belong?
Hmm.
I think that's where that's a question. And if you ask me, do you know the answer? I don't. I'm still kind of. I think it's always a moving phase. And yeah, so this question, while many of us as immigrants faced when we move to a different country, this
Yeah.
is something that I've always had to go back to.
Way before you even immigrated.
Yes. So
Yeah.
who am I, and where do I belong more than where I'm from, right? Where do you belong?
Mhm.
So I think that's very important. And that can be a very difficult question for a kid to answer. It's very
Yeah.
difficult even for an adult to answer,
Yeah.
right? Because it questions, where do you really belong? Who do you think
Hmm.
are your, where's your home?
Was there like anybody you talked to about it or you discussed this with? Because like you said, you were a kid, right? You were a teenager probably. And how did you you didn't know how to really like tackle those things, how to process it. What did you do then?
I think at that time, people, it's a part of growing up. And
Hmm.
to be honest, I did have friends, but now when I look back, I didn't really discuss. It was always like
Hmm.
self introspection, like how am I? Uh, it's like people wanted to box you, but I didn't want to be boxed.
Hmm.
Okay, I am this. I am from all these places. All these places have made me who I am.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's what I continue to believe.
Hmm.
I All these places where I have stayed have taught me.
Yeah.
Every single place is made me who I am. So while it's kind of difficult to say where I am from, actually, I think I belong everywhere
Yeah.
because I've learned and I have given also, right, to
Yeah.
these places, my friends. So again, to answer your question, I really didn't discuss. I think that's what you kind of process this internally, and then when you grow up as an adult, you realize that yes, this is something that probably if I would have discussed, maybe it would have been easier. I could get a lot of learning experiences from others, but you don't think so much about those things when you're in the rat race of getting your
Yeah.
admission, job, and everything like that. So no, I really didn't discuss this.
Yeah. I really like when you said, all these things have made you. And I think I've said this so many times in the podcast that we are all blessed with this, unique amalgamation of gifts, obviously, some experiences. And that's what makes us like who we are.
Yeah.
Nobody is us and we are nobody. And that's what makes us unique.
Wow.
And all these things which are unique to us is something which nobody can even take from us. They are us. So
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's how like I see these things. Yeah,
Yeah, that's beautiful, Chris. And I think to realize that, as you said, now it cannot be taken away from me, right? So
absolutely.
that I think is one the first step of self acceptance that this is what I am, and it cannot be taken from me. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Even in terms of the story you are telling, the story only Luna can tell the story because you have had these experiences. No, I cannot tell this because I've never been through these situations, right?
Yep.
So you have lived like all around India here and there. Tell me something that people might not know about these three places, or more specifically, where you spend most of your time in Calcutta. Something about Calcutta that people might not know that you would like to share.
I think Calcutta it's known as one of the metro cities. So many people even
Yeah.
outside would know that it's got a history, culture. But I think what makes Calcutta different is while it's a metro, it's got an old world charm. So even if I go back right now, it is a different space. It's not that fast moving. It's not like a Mumbai, Delhi, or
Yeah.
Bangalore that you would notice. It has its old world charm. So it's a beautiful place. I think I really loved my childhood. Even now, I think if I would get a chance to go back and live in any other place in the world, I would always
Mhm.
choose Kolkata because that is a beautiful place. So it's very rich culture wise,
Mhm.
heritage wise,
Yeah.
great education system, very very like your I think even kids were pushed to do a lot creatively than only education. It's one of the places where education is not only the only thing that you do. You are pushed
Mhm.
to do to explore sports, culture, and art. So I think that way it's a very holistic place to grow. So as I said, I was born there, brought up there. I spent even now if I kind of add the years, Calcutta, this is the highest number of years I have stayed is still there. So
Yeah.
a lot of me is from that place.
Yeah. And I think when you said old world charm, I think that explains everything. How Calcutta
Yeah.
is. Yeah. I love
Yeah,
that.
you still like I still have my family up there, and I see that they still have the same um, way of life,
Mhm.
which probably we would have 15 years back or 20 years back, as compared to other cities which are constantly changing. If you go to say Bangalore in 3 years' time, you'll not see, it won't probably be the same. Or if you go to
Yeah.
Delhi, it would probably, some places of it won't be the same. Or Mumbai, it won't be the same. So yeah.
So while you were still battling this, identity crisis, so to say, and finding yourself, so you decided to move to Australia. Tell us, like, what prompted the decision to move there, and obviously the life there.
I think moving to Australia was never like, because we were looking at moving to Canada because our family was here and it was taking a while. And express entry is pretty like, it's the, you do have
Yeah.
the draws and stuff, so it was taking time. And um, the person helping us with our file mentioned that, this part of the western part of Australia is actually having a regional nomination for my for HR profession. So it was quite shocking because usually in the skilled nomination, HR doesn't come up that often, obviously because you do have local talent and it's not like a skill shortage. So she said that, why don't you apply? And I was like, oh, okay, if you think so, we can. And so there was no research done. There was nothing done because we were almost in the last phases of Canada. So we thought that in case that,
Mhm.
something comes up, that will happen. But we got it like in 4 months time. We got the visa. And
Oh wow.
then we were like, oh my god, now what do we do? Like
Yeah.
this is something that we've got. So we waited and thought about, then we started doing our research. It was a mining town of Perth that I got a nomination to. And mining was not doing that well at that time. So there was a little bit of question mark into both me and my husband were doing extremely well in India with respect to jobs. I was talking to a lot of people. Many people kind of dissuaded me. This is like a career suicide you're going to do.
Mm.
If you're going to be here in the next 5 or 6 years, you are going to kind of reach a very good position. What you want to do. So, and to be honest, Chris, I think every individual in India at some point has this dream of going abroad, right? My dad really
Yeah.
wanted to go. He couldn't go. He always used to say that, I want you guys to, at least explore that.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I think
Hmm.
it never, because it was not like, I have to go abroad or, I need that. I was very content as a kid. Even now, I'm quite content. I'm not the kind of person who will say, I need to do this now or but my husband was like, oh, this is an experience. Let's not lose it. Right. There's a reason why we
Hmm.
got it. So just let's
Yeah.
go. So we didn't have anything like it was just adventure. Let's go.
Mm.
And we moved. And versus, to be honest, the transition was pretty smooth
Mm.
from getting a job and things like that. Luckily I got a job quickly, my husband did get a job. It culturally it was very different because it's a different country, right? So you're
Mhm.
completely uprooting your social circle and your what you're familiar with to a place where no one knows anything. I don't know, it's all about trial and error, like every.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, but I really enjoyed the place. I learned a lot about self acceptance there. um,
Mhm.
there's when I realized that, what, um, culture is something that we think, like when we are in India or back home, we always think that, okay, these are some of the things that make us. But it's a huge learning and unlearning journey when you're in a different country, because
Yeah.
you think you don't fit in. But it's not that. It's not that you don't fit in. You have to take those steps to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's something totally different from what you do. And then I had some really, really, I got a chance of educating people from where I came. I had this really funny incident which I shared in one of my um, sessions in the office as well. So there was somebody in my office who asked me, "Oh, Luna, do you come from India? Does everything?" She had seen only Slumdog Millionaire, so she
Mm.
actually asked me, like, "Does is India like what I see in Slumdog Millionaire?"
Classic.
I was so taken aback. I felt bad. My first reaction
Yeah.
was like, and then I was like, what do I do? So I went back. I was very quiet. Usually that's my approach when something I'm shocked. I usually kind
Yeah.
of keep quiet. So I went back and I was like, I didn't talk to anyone about it, not even my husband. And I was like thinking about it, like, And I felt really bad. Then I took the opportunity. When I went back to the work the next day, somebody said that, you should address this. This is like a racial slur, and people, she must have.
Yeah.
So I actually went back to this person and I said that, let me teach you where I come from. So I took that not as an opportunity to put that person down, or to say that this is a racial attack on me, or this is something which I truly understood it was a teaching point about what my
Mhm.
culture is. And when I showed the palaces in Rajasthan and the Victoria Memorial back in Calcutta, and she was
Yeah.
stunned. She's like, this looks like somewhere in Europe. And I was like, yeah. So sometimes I think teachable moments happen when you are working with somebody who comes from a different culture. And we kind of take it as an offense. I learned that lesson, which I
Mhm.
take very deeply. If somebody says something which is incorrect, I don't take it personally. I don't take it as a personal attack. I take
Mhm.
some time, go back to that person, and actually take it as a teachable moment. Sometimes the person takes it, sometimes the
Yeah.
person does. But 99% of the time, Graces, I have seen people do accept when you teach them. Like, this is what
Yeah.
I am. I mean, I do have a different name. So many people ask me, "Oh, how do you speak such good English?"
Classic question again. Yeah.
Right? So I always say, most of the spelling bees are won by Indian kids, right? Like, all our schools are. So a lot of those stereotypes are still waiting to be broken. And I think, as I said, I always take an opportunity to share my culture with people around me rather than taking offense to it. And it
Mhm.
has worked well for me. I think many people respect me, and I also respect. Sometimes I don't know about certain things,
Mhm.
but instead of assuming and stereotyping, I think it's important. As I said, I don't want to box. I've never wanted to be boxed. I don't want to box people. So that's what I've learned in my journey. When I was in Australia, I think that was the biggest learning I had.
I think that's the right approach to take, and that's what this podcast is about. Breaking those stereotypical molds and some like prejudices which people have. And the funny story, I also have like a very similar story. So somebody saw this movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, yes. I think you told me this.
So you see, like Amrish Puri is there, and all that thing is happening. Somebody saw it, and they said people actually eat those animals' hearts, and I was like, no, we don't do that. That's a movie. Take it as a movie. That's a character, a fictional character. Nobody does like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I remember correcting them as well, but I think you said it right also. Like sometimes it's important to give the benefit of the doubt that they might be curious or unaware about the things, and I think I always say that in my case, that I always say that I'm happy to educate you if you're unaware about the colors of my turban or about my religion, because I do meet people who don't know about Sikhism, and it's absolutely fine, which people might
Yeah.
not know about it. But also, don't you think, Luna, like sometimes we have to not like sometimes I think it's not necessary to explain them also.
From my personal experience versus, I feel that sometimes
Hmm.
I don't lose the chance. Sometimes you do get that wall, right? People don't want to listen to you. Then I take that
Yeah,
step back. But
exactly. Yeah.
if I see that the person is genuinely, for this example, my colleague, when, so she felt really bad because after like this happened, and the next day people were like, "Oh, you shouldn't have spoken like that. Like that borders on something. Maybe if she complains, then HR will get involved and stuff like that." So she genuinely came to me and she said, "I've never traveled the world. Like, I've been
Hmm.
brought up here. I've probably gone to Europe because she's, her ancestors came from there. So she's been there, but she's like, I'm really sorry. Like, after that, I didn't really know, and probably I should have framed it differently." And I think that I didn't expect that from her. Now did I tell her to tell me sorry? It came automatically. Like, it came genuinely that, okay, it is, through my ignorance. But I feel it's important, Gursu, because we also have a voice. And I think using that voice to educate is never wrong,
Yeah.
right? Again, you gauge it. If you feel this person is shut off, then it's a different story. But I think, especially when it comes to culture, you're also here to, it's like I always say, especially in the context of Canada, because we are from so many different places. We are like a quilt, right? one of us is a different patch,
I love
right?
that.
So
Yeah.
we may be a bigger patch. Sometimes we need to cut it down. Sometimes we need to join another patch which may not be of the same color.
I love the analogy.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, and in the end, the quilt is warm, fuzzy, and it brings that warmth, right? So I always say that sometimes somebody has to take that extra step. You may
Yeah.
choose not to. If you take it, it's okay. But I do. Sometimes I get like, why do you have to say? People back home say, why do you have to go there? Like, you don't leave that. Maybe the person would not understand, but yeah, I just take it. I think it's important for me because if I don't do it, then probably I'll be like, oh, I should have at least explained
Mm.
my side of the story. Yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way you explain this, we are a quilt, this analogy, I think you should write a poem about it. I loved it. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I think we all are different, right? Only thing that when we
Yeah.
come together, we are this beautiful, beautiful stuff that comes together. So we have to ensure that we may be different. I may be blue, you may be
Mm.
brown, somebody else may be yellow, but we
Yeah.
all come together to make this warm and fuzzy for
Yeah.
for society as a whole.
So tell us about the culture that you experienced in Australia. Anyway, like how was it like different from India, or how was the life
Yeah,
there in general?
it's beautiful. Again, Gursus, I think it's different. The very first thing that I learned was communication for
Hmm.
me, because in India, typically, while some of us are opinionated, we always take that, okay, let's listen, let's absorb, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes we like to sandwich. So we are not really upfront with, and there's nothing wrong because it's a culture we
Hmm.
want to be respect. Not that they want to be disrespectful. It's just that we, even if we have to break a bad news or we say that you've done a shoddy job, you'll never hear anyone saying that that was,
Hmm.
not a good job or whatever. So we try and kind of say this was good, but this could be done better.
Hmm.
But when I moved to Australia, I think one thing which I learned is being upfront. Direct communication is quite something which I saw. And I
Okay.
think I absolutely loved it because what you see is what you get, right? So if you've done a bad job or you've done a great job, it's there for you to see. They will tell you that on your face. There's no like question mark. Like sometimes you have like, oh, you said this, but I thought you said it was a great thing,
Yeah.
right? And then your interpretation, because you're not direct in it. So I think communication um, was something that I learned. Be more direct in communication.
Hmm.
That is something which I keep very close to my heart. I think it makes life very, very simple. When you,
I'm
again, there's a
sure.
way of saying, yeah,
Yeah.
it makes life simple by just being, honest about what you feel. And that's one thing which I learned. And third is a second thing which I understood, Grace, is while we move countries, when I started expanding my social circle, I realized that there are people who kind of want to come together in
Hmm.
their own communities.
Okay.
So I personally didn't want to do that. I came into this country to learn something, right? So not that because I did not want to interact with fellow Indians. I had many
Of
friends who were
course.
Indians,
Yeah.
but I just realized that that's something which kind of it doesn't make you experience the country as a whole,
Hmm.
right? Enjoying living with somebody who's from locally, enjoying their festivities locally. It's very easy for us to go back to what's comfortable for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so even I think as an immigrant, that was again my second, that you've taken that step of going outside your comfort zone in a new country. Don't lose that. There's always that inertia to bring you back. Indians are everywhere. You have your
Hmm.
friends, you have communities. Not that I'm saying go ahead, enjoy your community as well, but don't limit yourself to
Yeah.
your community. So that's another thing which I learned, and I think I made friends for life out there in Australia because I had both from Indians as well as fellow Australians there, because I think I took each and every moment to learn and unlearn, and I wanted to make the most out of it. How
Of
is it
course.
that I can make my patch
Hmm.
join with them so that we can
Yeah.
make this beautiful piece? Yeah.
And this has also been a common denominator amongst all my guests who have been on the podcast. Everybody has said the same thing, that yes, it's important to have a familiar group to go back to all the time, but it's also very necessary to embrace the country you are in and try to integrate in their culture and with the people. And I think
Yeah.
that really helps you. That really, really helps you to grow in a foreign land. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also about respecting, like you say, respecting the land, right? Like
Yeah.
even understanding the nuances, what they like. It's very important. When you're coming in, you need to respect what they see is sacrosanct to their land and their culture and their rituals too. So I think that's important to understand that. As adults, as we grow, we always have that pull inertia to not have that change.
Hmm.
It's a responsibility of us to say that
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to go into this poll that's coming. I need to move and see what I can learn out of this.
After immigrating from India, you decided to immigrate for the second time and you decided to move to Canada. So tell us
Yeah.
what motivated the decision to move there. And I believe you just mentioned that you wanted to move to Canada initially, but you end up
Yeah.
going to Australia.
Yeah, we were like, while this paperwork was going on for Canada, we loved our stay in Australia. Australia was beautiful. As I said, we already based our careers well there. We had great, we started building our own social circles, and it was a beautiful, the weather was amazing. It was very close to India because we were in the western side. It was not the long duration. If you just wanted to go back home, we could visit and stuff. So everything was going well. And then we got this opportunity. And I think the universe has its way, Guru. So sometimes, again, and I see this as a constant theme probably in my life of moving away from comfort zone knowingly or unknowingly. So when this
Hmm.
opportunity came, this was a move which was a little bit more difficult because, as I said, the first move, we didn't have any check boxes, right? We
Hmm.
just wanted to experience, see how it's going. This was a second time. Again, moving. And when you start basing that the first time, you realize that,
Yeah.
okay, this is a lot, it's emotional strain, it's spiritual, it's
Hmm.
physical, it's the financial. There's a lot of moving components when you move countries,
Yeah.
right? So do we want to go through it again? So there was a lot of questions, and when we got this, we thought, okay. And because some extended family was here, we thought, okay, just let's take the plunge. So we were happy, and then came just before winter. So everyone did tell us that the winter is going to be brutal and everything. And we
Yeah.
never experienced. Even in Australia, it was never the
That cold.
coldest. It
Yeah.
would go probably 3 to 4 degrees on the coldest day that you would
Hmm.
have where we lived. So it was brutal, and yeah, it is a different. And I thought, to be honest, done it first time. How difficult
It
can it
could be.
get?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how like it's you've had that experience. You have international experience. How is it? But I think the universe has its way of humbling you, right? You think you know yourself, you think you know how
Yeah.
to crack the code, and then it was like, no, this is something which was totally different. And then within a few months, it was difficult. Like I got my first gig. Again, Guru says, did a lot of mistakes. Like, obviously, the whole focus was so driven about getting a job, got into a wrong kind of an employer,
Mm.
and it really went bad, right? I couldn't,
Mm.
it really affected me a lot mentally. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I quit that organization, and COVID hit. From the time we came to the time COVID hit, we didn't really have that. So we were so caught up in getting everything sorted, like the basic stuff, we really didn't have the chance to socialize much. So we just, all of a sudden, while we had people whom we could meet, we were just at home for 2 years.
Mm. Yeah.
So that brought itself challenges because we always have ways to distract ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We're constantly doing things, we are constantly trying to achieve things or going out, and then suddenly COVID came and you're just stuck in a place where you have yourself, your job, and what do you do, right? So I think that was a huge, it again got back to self introspection, going back inside to figure out what is your purpose, why are you here, what do you want to do. There are so many difficulties. There were days when you were like, oh, do you really want to do it? You always can go back, right? And we couldn't even go back because there
Of
was no travel.
course.
Okay, so it was like,
Yeah.
it's like God's way of saying, "Hey, you're here now,
Yeah. Stay here.
deal with it." Like, yeah, and
Yeah.
deal with it, and this is what it is. So it was quite humbling. Again, lots of unlearning and learning, because as you grow older, also, Chris, you think, as I said, you think you know yourself. You're aware of
Mm-hmm.
certain things. You think that you operate in a specific way, and that all went out of the door.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to networking face to face, meeting people, and now I had to completely change that. How do I ask somebody to spend half an hour on a video call when I don't know? And it's more weird, right? Like, how would you want? And nobody's done it before.
Yeah.
So I had to build a social connect. I had to do all these things sitting in the confines of my four walls. And I am the kind of person who gets a lot of energy, because, again, my job is like that. I am that kind of person. I get energy from people.
Yeah.
So it was like putting you inside a box and say, hey, this is what you have now. Make magic out of it. Right? So it was difficult. And yeah, that was my first experience with Canada. The first year was tough. But then I realized that, yeah, you have to think outside the box again.
Yeah.
If you've been given this, what can you make most of it? So I did a lot of volunteering. I started doing a lot of work with new immigrants. Even now, I don't think this is, I have achieved everything, and whatever I have learned, I only share.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in that 5 year new immigrant bracket, what they say. I'm just going to complete 4 years.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning. But I take every opportunity to help, because I know how difficult it is when you come to a new country and you have no one. And the older you get, the more difficult I think it gets. Maybe I'm
Mm.
against stereotyping, but I think as you grow older, because you have such set patterns, it's very difficult to undo that. So I always try,
Absolutely.
and that during that time, I think I got into that. I want to help others. I went through this time when I was struggling a bit, and I kind of found these ways to get my sanity. I want to share
Mhm.
that with other people, right? So that's what I did during my time when I first came from Canada.
Listening to you, I feel like the second immigration into Canada might not be that difficult, but COVID was that added pressure that made it really hard for you both, actually, to really get started in this new country. I believe you told me you came in September 2019, right? So tell us
Yeah.
about your first day. That how was the first day, initial thoughts and emotions when you landed?
So I think it was like, obviously it was Toronto, and it was very nice to see, because I've been, like, I was in Calcutta. Then when I moved to Bangalore, it was a big city. Then I went to Perth, which was a smaller city, very very
Mhm.
quiet, very quaint place. It was again a smaller city. And when I came to Toronto, it's all this hustle bustle. So it was really nice. And it was the fall. I really loved that. It was during that time, and everything
Mm,
was
yeah,
beautiful, and the pumpkin spice and everything. Like, the first thoughts were really good. And to be honest, this is to my experience, I always give it time. I don't make first assumptions, because sometimes you judge based on first. So I was like, okay, this looks nice. It's a place. And again, we had support systems, and we did have people who could probably give us some guidance. So I was kind of comfortable at that stage. But again, the North American market is another beast, right? Your education and your licensing and everything is another beast. And slowly, when we started understanding the nuances of it, it was like, yeah, you're coming in, especially when you come to a GTA, there are so many immigrants. You're
yeah.
competing with the local population. So those things started like bearing in that, there.
Hmm.
And Canada has got huge. And when we came, I think that's the time also, like every year, the number of immigrants was huge. So
Yeah,
it was a scary proposition, because, and again, that's when you start questioning yourself. Sometimes you feel like, oh, will I be able to do it? I've done it once.
mhm,
It might not be so difficult, but what if I don't do it?
yeah,
Right? So, what would the peers say? What would the family say? So you also come with that added pressure. Sometimes it's just what you bring on yourself. Sometimes you just need to eliminate the noise, is what I have learned
yeah.
after that experience. But I think my first assumptions were definitely positive. Even the snow, I think, when I when I sit inside the house, I really enjoy it. Like, with a cup of coffee and see the beautiful moonlight on the snow, it looks mesmeric,
Yeah.
right? So it's just that when you go out, it kind of is. But I think, yeah, every country is beautiful.
So you were telling earlier, how in India people have a certain way of getting things done, and then you go to Australia and people are very direct. But then you come to Canada, where people have a way of sugarcoating things, and the all that politeness kind of is translated sometimes in a passive aggressive manner as well at times, which is the truth. But tell me, do you have any like similar experience or anything else that you would like to highlight, signifying the cultural difference between Australia, India, and Canada?
I'll speak specifically for Canada. Is it's a melting pot. So you have different
Hmm.
people who make those subtle differences. But one thing which I always say, Grisses, is make your difference your USP, right? So
Hmm.
I consciously said I'm going to keep this is a beautiful gift of direct communication that's given to me, and I think it makes life, as I said, it makes life easier.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're rude. You can say the thing directly,
Yeah.
but with empathy. So I consistently thought that I don't want to lose that,
Yeah.
right? This is something that I learned. It's a golden, what do you call, gift that I
Power,
got in those
sort
four
of.
years. Yeah, power, yeah.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot of time to inculcate that. It was not easy
I'm
for me,
sure. Yeah.
right? Because I didn't come from that. So I didn't want to lose that. While you're different, you have to be authentic to yourself. You don't really. So this is the other thing which I feel that people say, oh, the culture is different. Culture is what you bring to it. Okay. It's
Hmm.
not necessary you change completely to suit. And when you do that, you will never be authentic to yourself, nor will you be authentic to others. I
100%.
think in the kindness, respect are two things which I think will always work for you. So I would say, even if you find that something is different from how you do it, ask your question: is it respectful? If it is it kind, the way you do it?
Hmm.
If it is, go ahead and do it. So I always tell people, don't think too much, because sometimes people keep wanting to become Canadian in some definition of different
Yeah.
people, that you lose yourself. And that is not what you want to do. So I think I always tell, even when I interact with students, I interact with people, it's okay to be different. But did you accept your difference? Do you
Hmm.
think it is, uh, is it kind? Is it respectful the way you come across? Sometimes you think, but you're getting this feedback consistently that you are a certain way, or you may work on it, right? Ask feedback. So things like that. So I think, again, this is culture. While we say this culture, that culture, the culture of kindness and respect is common across any country.
Yeah.
So as long as you can do that, you will always be welcome. You will always be a great citizen. You will be always be a great community member.
Yeah. I also remember reading, some posts on LinkedIn from your profile, and I think kindness and empathy were like your common words. You have
Yeah,
used them everywhere.
yeah. I think that's something which versus I feel kindness is always seen very negatively in today's, because it shows that you are softer. But no, kindness is a huge power that you have. Sometimes you can kind of get across people only with a kind smile, or even silence, kind
Yeah.
silence to give it to them. So I think I constantly say that if you can just think when you are doing something, and you are just see, are you respectful? Are you kind? If answer to both is no, then you need to redirect your strategy or plan of action. You cannot either be kind or respectful. It has to go tick on kindness, tick on.
Hand in hand. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something which I always say.
I see kindness as a way of, accepting people the way they are and not imposing your ideologies on them.
Such a beautiful example you gave. You respect, and that's how you accept, right? If you don't
Yeah.
respect, you don't accept. And sometimes it's different, difficult to accept somebody who's different from you. It's a learning opportunity for you. Then you don't know enough about something. As human beings, I think each one of us has two things: either you accept, or you learn from it and you think, this is not my cup of tea, I don't understand this concept, but
Yeah.
respect it otherwise also, and then move on.
So now you touched briefly upon your profession that you work in human resources. I wanted to tell us a little bit more about your journey in Canada, the job journey, I would say, because I remember you sharing that with me that you did go down multiple levels just
Yeah.
when you moved to Canada. And you also used this line where you said that, I have so much in me, but we don't like boasting about it. And I
Yeah.
wanted to expand on that, this aspect of the culture that we grow up in, and how did you overcome that, and also tell our listeners about your profession as well.
I think this is I learned the hard way because again I was learning to accept myself. The other thing which I will tell everyone is when you come, there will be a lot of voices who will tell you that you have to start
Hmm.
as a warehouse worker. You have to start. So I think psychologically sometimes people already put it that you have to go 2 levels down or
Hmm.
a level down.
Yeah.
It may be, but some people even stop trying, and I think that had some effect on me, even though I had an Australian. And then, as I said, Grace, is the first stint that I had with an employer was not that great. Obviously, I would not like to name them. It was basically, because I was new to the country, I was, obviously I was still learning about, it was a very, very toxic culture that I had to endure. So I was still reeling through that. And the reason why is I just wanted to get out of that place.
Hmm.
To be honest, because I myself questioned my ability, right? I didn't take the opportunity. Sometimes we are in that comfort zone. So while I talk about moving outside the comfort zone, sometimes we get comfort. Okay, we got this, let's just make the best out of it, which is great. But I think if that's not what you think you are technically worth, you should explore. So that fear of losing what you have and things like that, and then the added thing of COVID came in, and there was a lot. So then that's when the 2 years that I sat in, I realized that, oh, you may be good, but there are strategies for you to work on yourself, because sometimes we are taught back culturally that don't talk about certain, you don't boast about yourself. It's boasting, though it's a negative term, there's nothing wrong to say if you've done something in your life, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong to say? Like if you've built a software which is life changing, why not? What's
Yeah.
wrong in saying that? So I think that again, it is wrong if you are saying it, making it up. But I think that's something that we need to consciously. It's okay to say you are good. It's okay to say that you have done something that somebody else has not done.
Hmm.
It's okay to say, because sometimes people may not say that.
Yeah.
So you are your voice. I always say, Gurus, in the end of the day, you're living with. If you don't accept yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you don't talk about yourself, you don't appreciate yourself,
Yeah.
don't expect anyone else to do it.
Yeah.
So if something inside is telling you that no, I'm not worth it, then maybe you are worth it, but you don't think you are. So I think it's that, again, you give out positive thoughts, you get positive thoughts, right? So I think that's also, while I'm talking to it from a very professionally, I think it's important. If you think that you are a manager and you have specific grades to go for it.
I feel like I'm talking to like a clone of mine, because sometimes I literally say the same things to my friends or people I speak to. Like, always be your own cheerleader. Nobody's going to come and advocate for yourself. You have to do it yourself. And another quote, Luna, I came across it maybe like 2 years ago, probably sometime in 2021, peak COVID, just locked in the house and nothing else to do on LinkedIn here and there. And I took on this like a 30 days challenge. And in that, I was just kind of researching about the what thing I can talk about. I came across this quote that you cannot hold anybody accountable for your happiness, because if you do
So
that,
true.
you are not only giving person the power, but you're also putting the pressure on the other person to make you happy all the time. And nobody in the world can do that. At some of the other point, they are going to disappoint you. So the best thing
Mhm.
is, don't give them the power to make you happy. You should be
Yeah.
responsible for your own happiness. It should come from within.
Yeah, and that is so true, Chris. I think that's something which I tell everyone, that you have to, the first step to any job search is look inward. And I think
Yeah.
also the other thing is, Chris, is when you start coming to a different country, you're always meeting people with the aim of getting something out of that person. I think
Yeah.
that's wrong. You can learn from somebody, but if you only go with the fact that I'm going to speak to this person and my aim is to get a job and I'm going to get this out of this person, it's not going to happen.
So you also work very closely with international students, and you were also being a mentor at various organizations. You are a mentor at Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. You are a and you're also the operations manager at Winning Inclusive Solutions Wins. You're responsible for the Canadian market research around diversity, equity, inclusion. You're also an ambassador for immigrant networks, and now you work as a talent acquisition specialist and co-chair for multiculturalism for Kalian Group. I want you to know a
Yeah.
little bit about your role, and also what are like some of the common questions or challenges that the students often seek guidance on, apart from like how you just mentioned that people come and ask you like for the job and everything.
Yeah.
Apart from that, what else?
My role specifically, Callian, is works a lot with government agencies. So we work on projects that they have. So work with various wings like CBSA, the IRCC, Department of National Defense. So we do a lot of federal-based contracts. So my role is basically working for those and ensuring that the statement of work for those individuals. And because our company has four divisions, I'm in the health. So for me, mostly it's healthcare role. So across. So
Okay.
we, as a team, we look for physicians, doctor, anything that you can think of, social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, anything that you
Okay.
can think of in that space. So that's something which is extremely, what to say, fulfilling, because in the end of the day, you're placing these people who are making a difference to people's lives. So I think consciously that's something which I am very proud of. I also, as you said, I am, co-chairing the multi diversity, which is again a great experience for me because I'm working with a lot of people, indigenous groups, women groups, young professional groups on mental health and things like that. So I get the opportunity to educate and also learn from various people throughout Callian across the business.
Hmm.
Recently, as you must have seen, I work part time as an instructor for one of the colleges too. So my interaction with international students, I always have a great respect for them, because I told you this in our initial chat as well. This is like, I think the amount of change that they are supposed to inculcate in
Yeah.
themselves is through the roof. And I know
Yeah.
it because, you come from a very secluded, not secluded, I think protected environment. And then you are coming into this country where you're supposed to do everything on your own. So
Yeah.
they have to do a lot. And some of them don't do it with any prior experience. They've never done it, or they don't have people to guide them. From international students, I think one which I tell recently, I've told all my students, what is your goal? When you're studying, make the most out of it. Right? I know some of them who don't network at all, who don't have LinkedIn accounts,
Yeah.
who don't do anything in those 2 years. They are so much into the rat race already of having that minimum wage job or the warehouse
Yeah.
job, that they are not looking at the big picture. So I always tell them, what are you here for? I know this is important. It's you cannot say that I will, let go of this job, but in the end of the day, this is not what you have come for. You have come for this. So while you have all these things, at least spend 1 hour.
Hmm.
You have resources in your college, you have alumni in your college. Start and build that. I know there's so much in your plate, but don't lose sight of your end goal. Where do you want to be? I know in the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's the whole thing of the visa and getting all these things, but make the most out of these years. You're not going to get back these 2 3 years, and these are critical. That accelerator. So you
Yeah.
have to put all you have in these 2 or 3 years to get that push for your future. So I would say that. Second is go out, meet different people. You've come here, try and explore, try and speak about the music that what's the
Yeah.
movies they see. Inculcate your own. You have your own interests, do that, but don't forget that you are here for a bigger experience. Learning is not only about textbooks. While I'm saying it, sometimes you have no option, but I say you can spend half an hour, 1 hour a day to kind of learn a little bit more and prepare yourself for your career. I know many of them are so much into technology that they always online. So I said, make more use of that. I try and see help them with that, because sometimes there's so much happening that they lose sight on what they're actually here for. So, and there are lots of people to help. I always tell them that look out, you will see genuine people who've been in your same situation here to help you.
And I think now we have like so many resources, sort of like platforms to reach out to people. One of them you work with, which immigrant networks as well, who connect people with other individuals who can help them. So many these things were just not there, at least like 5 years ago when I moved to Canada, it just wasn't there. So, but I
Yeah,
think we are a little hesitant to ask for that help. So I think I will
Yeah,
encourage international students that nobody's it's the truth, like nobody's coming to help you, nobody is. You really have to take that effort and ask for that help. I remember you also mentioning this line, it's a lot of you pushing yourself out, nobody's coming
yeah.
to push you on that. Yeah.
It's like the crying child gets the food, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you have to see again, that's the fear versus, I think it's also fear of failure is so high in us, that we are so scared. But the failure or regret that you will have of not doing it will be far
Yeah.
more. So I always tell people the max that you will get from somebody is no, I can't do it. That's fine, move on. If this person doesn't help, there will be somebody else. Don't have that fear stopping you from doing it. The most silly question you ask may make you feel that, oh, this person is inquisitive, curious. Let me take this person under my wing and mentor him or her.
Yeah.
It could just mean that one right person who comes into your life.
And what would you say, Luna, to the people, or I would say international students who are questioning their decision to move to Canada? Because I am in contact with few students, and they ask this question to me all the time: that, oh, you are here from 5 years. Did you have any times, or did you have any situations or phase where you were questioning a decision that why did I come here? Things are not working out. Things are not happening. So I want you to answer this question. How would you answer this?
I think it's just all of us in some point, no matter how great our journeys have
Yeah.
been. It could be like our jobs are going financially, everything is going well, but maybe connect wise or social wise, it's not.
Yeah.
Or the other way, you have great friends, but nothing is happening. So, all of us. So, I think that's the pain that everyone has to endure, right? Like, there's every change, everything has, and sometimes I know it can be. That's why I say have those two or three people whom you can reach out to. Sometimes I also know, Gurus, is that maybe people you don't. This is something which students tell me. I don't want to speak to people back home because I don't want to load them with thinking that
Yeah.
I am doing this. So they don't have people whom they can call back home
Mhm.
because they feel that, oh my God, they will feel upset. My father will feel upset. My mother will feel, or my sister will feel upset. So take one or two. It could be a friend that you have. Talk about it. Because to be honest, none of us, I think maybe the degrees are varying, none of us have had an easy journey. Everyone
Yeah.
has gone through that have I come here to do this, right? Like, why did I do this? I had such a comfortable, even if I go back,
Yeah.
right? So it's always, as I said, that inertia is always going to push you. Having said that, Gursus, always look at, have you done everything? And if somebody who asks me this, I will say, think, very, very practically. Have you done everything that is in your might to make it happen?
Mhm.
99% of the people have not, right? They because they're so stressed. Sometimes it is a natural process. When you're stressed, when you're upset, you don't think straight, right? So
Yeah.
have this one person or two people, speak to them, write down what is your course, and have a plan. Always have a plan B, right? If this is not working, what do I do next? So I think it's like anything. Never, don't give up. Second is try as much as you can. Third is block noise. Sometimes you will hear more people saying things that you want to hear rather than what you don't want to hear. So when you're feeling
Yeah.
down and somebody's saying that, oh, I think you should just,
Do
don't
so and
do
so.
this.
Yeah.
As I said, because all of us have gone through,
Yeah.
irrespective, and I can understand international students would probably have more because they have more added pressures too.
So you have mentioned it, throughout our conversation, Luna, that you have had that, discovery, and that whole process, or took you years to find yourself, and you're basically, saying that I love yourself, you love yourself, and but tell me if any of our listeners is going through maybe like a similar phase or similar discovery, what advice would you give to them, or any sort of like insights that you can share, that they should like follow, that can help, they can basically learn to love themselves a little more.
I think one, again, while I say that, Grisos, I'm still in the process. I've been a little bit better of self
Hmm.
accepting. Um, but again, we all, again, are human beings, right? Every time we see
Yeah.
ourselves in certain situations, I would say that ensure that, especially when I say this even for people who go for interviews, right? When you go in for an interview, and some of us take the public transport, I used to do it, and this helped me. This is a very clinical way. Take a diary, okay? And immediately, once you sit in the train, just after you've had an interview which was extremely good or extremely bad, take down notes. How are
Hmm.
you feeling?
Hmm.
What are some of the points you thought are going well, did well? What something that you absolutely did a shit show of, right? So writing those things down and then just keep, because sometimes what happens is time plays with you. You when you think about that thing in 2 days time, you know it becomes a little colored. So I realized that this helped me, even when I was having conversations with new people. How did I present myself?
Yeah.
Was there anything? And then I started asking feedback from people. Okay, I took a lot of mock interviews or anything like that. People used to say, "Okay, take my mock interview." I used to ask them, when I asked you a question, did you feel comfortable? Did my body language come? So I did a lot of like that from people. I asked a lot of my friends. I took a lot of help from my family members who I'm comfortable with. Like, what do you think works? What works? And it's constantly that feedback from others and how you're feeling about it. But sometimes you're overcritical about yourself.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. And it's a good sign you're overcritical. That means you have high expectations of yourself, right? So
Yeah.
I always tell people, make notes of how you are feeling. If you're feeling bad about something, if you're feeling not so great, write it down or vocalize it. Some people don't like to write it, vocalize it, or just record it on your phone,
Hmm.
right? So when you start hearing yourself after a few, why did I feel that? And then sometimes some of these things that I wrote down, I read 2 years down, I was like, how silly was I? Like, or, this is not such
Yeah.
a big deal. Why was I feeling that way? Because I think my brain also kind of fuzzes out certain things,
Yeah.
of how you feel, how you are doing, and things like. So it's important. I think that helped me. Second is, if you've really not done something well, it's okay. Just
Yeah.
forget about it. Like, you just write down what you could do better, and then just move on.
Hmm.
I've seen so many people who like have this, they've given it all in their interview, they've really done well or really bombed,
Yeah.
and then they feel bad, and then that affects their further conversations down the line too. End of the day, one thing which I do is, just if you can, just try and write down three things that you were really proud about. I had done it during COVID. I used to keep a bowl, and I used to keep one thing which I did well today. And then after, I think I did it for about 8, 9 months. It was so beautiful. The days when I used to feel
Wow.
bad, I used to just open it and read it. I was like, oh, I did this also. I did this also. This also. So I
Yeah.
used to do that, like a gratitude bowl kind of thing, which just helps, and then work on yourself. That's all. With whatever feedback, it's important that you do with the feedback that you get. Now, if somebody's saying that you need to do this good, or you could do this better, and you feel that, yeah, I do need to do it, and you don't do anything about it, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, great, great suggestions, Luna. You know what I do? I actually don't write. I do the audio journaling.
mm,
Literally, like you just mentioned, sometimes you can record. I do that. Not every day, to be very honest,
yeah,
but I do that at times, when I'm feeling a little low at times or something amazing at times, I do record it because I really wanna record the emotion I am, so that I can, whenever I can go back and listen to it, I can feel that emotion again. That's how I do it at times.
yeah, that's beautiful, because it also, like, it's so humbling, because sometimes you're like, oh my god, like, I've grown so much from there. Or, I
Yeah.
I did that at that time. That was such a big thing for me, and it's so humbling. So I think
Yeah.
people should look at ways like
Yeah.
that.
I think it also helps me sometimes see the mystery around our lives, like basically you see for example, if you really like join the dots, you really see that why certain thing didn't work out, because I was supposed to reach here, or why that thing worked out because it was supposed to take me to the next journey of mine, so you really like have that time to really see the bigger picture. At times
Yeah,
you
I
have
agree.
this documentation.
I totally agree with this. And this is something, again, which that if something is not happening and you're trying too hard, it's just not meant to be. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just need to give it time. It will come in the right time, right? So that's an amazing thing that you said.
Okay, Luna. So now we're in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent because we are knowing each other beneath the accent. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you. And since you are a listener of the podcast, I have changed the questions a little bit to make it a
Okay.
little more difficult for you.
Sure.
So, ready?
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to Luna, who is in the initial months of landing in Canada?
Don't stress. It will get better.
Is there something you recently bought that you now regret?
I'm actually a quite a conscious buyer. I was somebody who used to buy a lot, so I do that
Okay.
thing. I put it on the cart, wait for 24 hours to see I
Mhm.
really need it or not. So really not
Yeah.
purchase. Actually, I don't regret. No, it's something that I regretted. Right? I didn't. I don't have anything that I regret.
If you had to describe yourself as any creature, what would it be?
I would say a dog. I think I have two dogs. I connect so much with them. I just feel that
Mhm.
in some birth of mine, I might have been a dog. Like I sometimes think I connect with them some far better than humans
Mhm.
sometimes. Yeah, I think yeah, I would say a dog. I connect.
So, what's next on your bucket list?
I actually want to explore a little bit more about the student community. I really want to do
Mhm.
something more. I know I have done a little bit of work, but this is, I won't say that I've really spent time. I know people directly have contacted me and I've helped in whatever capacity. I want to do something a little bit more focused on it. I'm still thinking about it. Thankfully, I've got into that space within the college. So I'm trying and seeing what I can do, but that's something I want to do something more for the immigrant and student community.
Who's your go to person?
The past 2 years, it's my sister. I think my
Mhm.
elder sister. She's about 7 years elder to me. I think I go to her because there's no judgment at all. So I can just say the most stupidest thing, the most silly thing, and then I even if I think about something silly, I just message her on WhatsApp. And this is what I'm feeling, and then she'll be like, "It's okay." So if somebody really listens to my conversation with her, she'll be like, "Oh my god, this girl is so confused sometimes. She's saying this, she's saying this too." So my sister, yeah.
Okay. What's the most unusual or unique food you have tried? And did you like it?
I actually had I don't know, it was a seafood with talons, something's nails. Okay, so I
Okay.
was thinking it's prawn, and I was biting into it, and it was like kind of rubbery, and somebody told me it had a nail of some. So it smelled a little funny, but it was tasty. But I kind
Okay.
of okay, I would like, but yeah, that's something which I think is very weird.
If you could swap lives with someone for a day, who would it be and why?
Ooh, this is such a nice question. I would like to swap probably with the Obamas.
Hmm. Okay.
Either Barack Obama or
Interesting.
Michelle Obama, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Why?
I think they say the right thing, right? They always
Huh.
say
Always,
it
yes.
always. So how did they come? Like it's very intriguing, right? They say the right things,
Hmm.
they do the right things. What's happening in their lives that makes them say these right things? I know there's this political PR and everything like that, but it's interesting to see. Like I would love to live their life for maybe a week.
It would be interesting to know what's the like daily dose of wisdom that they get, which they're imparting. Yeah.
And it's not easy to be in that space where you're always scrutinized and to
Yeah.
remain and say these things that you are doing. And even Barack Obama, while he's won the Nobel Peace Prize, and there are some lot of controversial things. Like there's a lot of things that intrigue me about them.
Do you have any quirky habits or rituals that you follow in your daily routine?
I actually need to have like masala tea every day. Like that, I don't
Oh,
know. Maybe
wow.
it's an addiction for my other the ginger tea that they have,
Okay.
Indian ginger tea. That is, if I don't have it, I think psychologically I feel like I'm just having a bad day. So I think that's something which fuels my day. I really love. I think when I
Okay.
start my day with a nice ginger tea, my day goes really well. I think it's a superstition or what, I don't know, but yeah. So everyone in my house, if my mood is not good, like or I'm like looking down or something, they'll say, "Hey, didn't you have your tea in the morning?" And then it will be that day maybe I missed it or I just had like hot water
Yeah.
instead or something.
If you could be a contestant on any reality TV show, which one would you choose?
It was something which I wanted to criticize. Like I think I have a hidden dancer in me. I won't say I'm good, uh, but I don't know. I get transported when I see dance in any form. I
Hmm.
actually spent hours, like my mom-in-law and me, we gel on these dance programs, reality shows. So we both Love it. So I think if I had to, do that something in dance, it could be like even Indian classical. And I just feel that dancers have a special like blessing or gift from God. Like
Hmm.
that's something which they have. So yeah, a dancer for sure.
Have you ever like tried to learn or train yourself in any of
Oh,
the
I
dance
have
forms?
actually, to be honest, Graces, I'm jack of all trade, master of none. So I
Okay.
did a little bit of classical dancing. I used to do a lot of Bollywood dance till I think my first job. I used to
Hmm.
go for classes, and also I always had that somewhere. That's something which I would like to bring back. Dancing in
Okay.
some form or the other. I'll
Hmm.
see a lot of it, but yeah, I think yeah, it's a good reminder for me, versus now that
Yeah.
you're saying I'll start looking at something new to do next year.
So describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
Mm, what word can I use?
I think you already answered it by calling it a quilt, which I
Yes.
absolutely loved.
Yeah, I think that I completely believe it because there's so many of us wanting to make this beautiful like piece warm, fuzzy, and having everyone come together. We are constantly working on this huge quilt. So yeah, Canada
Yeah.
is.
So if you could leave me with one piece of advice, what would it be?
Continue doing what you're doing, Chris. You are kind of bringing learnings and journey. And I know I told you this before, it's not easy to spend your time to do something for others. Continue doing that. You never know. You're putting such a lot of positivity in the universe. It's bound to come back tenfold to you. So continue doing this job. I look forward to seeing much more. I have learned so much from all your podcasts, and I also kind of have one something whenever I listen to your podcast. I have one thing that I take back, either as a thought or something that I should do. So thank you for that, Chris. Continue.
Thank you. Thank you for kind words. That's definitely my goal. So, how would you describe your experience of being on the podcast as a guest now, not only a listener?
As I said, it was such a beautiful because this helped me go back to my 15-year-old self, my 21-year-old self, the time I moved, and now how I am. And while I'm still on the journey of, being a better version of me, I think
Hmm.
I really loved it because you don't do it every day, right? So it's a
Yeah.
great experience. And I hope that with whatever little that I have shared, it makes a difference to at least one person. So I'd be happy if that happens.
I'm sure about that. So, on that note, thank you so much, Luna, for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa.
Hey, listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly, highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.